In this video, we're going to quickly go over how to do 1 and 2 point perspectives. There's a couple things they have in common and a couple of differences that they have. I want to make sure we're clear on all of them. So take a look at 1 point perspectives to start off with here. The first step always is to start with a horizontal line. That horizontal line that you start with is called a horizon, and that happens for 1 and 2 point perspectives. But just for this one, make sure you're happening with 1 point perspectives. Once you have that, you're going to draw a single point on that horizon. That point is called the vanishing point. Once you have that accomplished, you're going to draw your front view. So if I'm drawing this cube, which I'll do in just a minute, I want to draw the front view, which is going to just be a square here. We'll add on our right and top views in just a moment. Once you have that drawn on there, you want to draw construction lines back to your point, and we'll make that a little bit more clear here in just a moment. And then finally, add your right and top views. So let's go through an actual working of this and see how it functions. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go in there and I'm going to draw in my horizon point. Once I have my horizon drawn, I'm going to add a point. It can be anywhere on that line, doesn't matter, just needs to be on that line. And generally what you want to do is you want to draw your front view to the left or to the right of that point. Since I drew my point on the right, I'm going to draw my square down here on the left. So I'm going to start off with my front view, and that's roughly my front view. If you're going through and actually drawing it, you'd measure it out and make sure it's correct. But in this case, that's what I'm going to go with for right now. Then I'm going to take construction lines from any of the corners back. So I have 4 corners. I'm going to draw my construction lines back to that single point. The only one I'm not really concerned about right now is this bottom left corner, because it's going to actually go through the part, and I don't want that. I just want the outside edges, so I'm going to leave that alone because it's going to be blocked out anyway. At this point, I need to draw my front and top views. So I have my front ready to go. I need my right and my top in there. So I need to add any vertical lines. They're going to stay vertical. And any horizontal lines, remember, if we look at this, it's a horizontal line. They stay horizontal. The only things that are on angles here are going to be our depth marks. So to begin with, let's draw our top view and get that set up in there. And you're really just estimating how far back you think they are. This is totally up to you, what you think looks good. There's some math you can do to figure it out properly, but I'm not concerned about us going through that. I just want to be able to find out the general idea of what it's looking at, because there's really no right or wrong, as long as you're getting the basic concepts down. So I drew a horizontal line in the back, which represents my line on my front view, or my top view, excuse me, back there. And then that point connects down, and I want to drop a vertical line from that. So I'm going to take my point and drop a vertical line down. Now at this point, all I need to do is go back in and connect my lines. 1, 2, and 3. And this is why it's important to draw those lines going to the vanishing point, because without them, you wouldn't be able to connect those points very easily, or draw the lines originally to begin with. But that's a 1 point perspective. Now you can see it's a little skewed, it's a little out of whack, it's not a perfect cube, and it's never going to look perfect. With these drawings, you're always going to have a little bit of wiggle room, which is nice because it's hard to get something wrong here. So let's take a look now at a 2 point perspective and see how that works. Again, you're always going to start with a horizontal line, that's called a horizon line. Instead of 1 point this time, with a 2 point perspective, you're going to draw 2 vanishing points on your horizon. From there, you're going to draw a vertical line that represents your tallest height, and that vertical line should be a construction line to start off with. On this part, it doesn't matter that much, but on other parts, it will matter a whole bunch. From there, you're going to draw construction lines back to both of the vanishing points, and you'll complete your front, top, and right views. So let's go in here and draw it now and see what we can get. So I'm going to start off by drawing my horizon line. I will draw 2 vanishing points, one on the right, and I'll add another one on the left. And then I can go in and draw a construction line that is my tallest height, which I've done there. From that point, I'm going to take construction lines and draw them back to the vanishing points. So the top of this line is going to go back to each side, and the bottom of this line is going to go back to each side. So I have the initial point set up. This line right here, where the corner is kind of at, represents the front corner of my part. So I like to start off with my front view all the time, so that means I need to add a line over here and connect the dots. Remember, on 1 and 2 point perspectives, any vertical line will stay vertical. It's true of both of them. The only difference between 1 and 2 point now is that there's no horizontal lines to be represented inside of this. In a 1 point, there is horizontal lines. In a 2 point, there is not. So I have this. I need to drop in my vertical lines. And I'm going to do this as a visible line because that's what it is. It's a visible line. I'll drop that in there, and I'm going to darken in my front line as well. So I have the 2 lines of my views done. I just need to connect them with a line, which I can do here. And that will complete the front view for my part. Again, it's going to look a little funky. It may not look perfect. That's okay. Now we need to get our right view drawn in there, and we need to figure out how to do the top. So the front view is done. The right view is pretty easy. It's basically the same thing. I have a vertical line in the front. I need to do a vertical line in the back. Again, you can estimate where that's at. I'm going to say it's roughly there. I don't really know. But that's okay because we're just doing some estimations. And then I have lines that connect those 2 together. So I'll go in and connect those. So 1 and 2. The last piece that we need to do is figure out how to do the top view. We know what it's supposed to look like, but how do we do that on here? The process is pretty simple, but there are a few little tricks that you need to know. Our original vertical line that we drew, if there are any corners that meet on the right side of that vertical line, we need to take that corner and run it back to the vanishing point on the left. So I'm going to take the vertical line, that we have a corner there that happens to the right of my original vertical line. I'm going to bring it back to the left vanishing point. If I have any corners that happen on the left side of my vertical line, I need to bring them back to the right vanishing point. So I just have this one corner here. It's going to go back to the vanishing point on the right because it crosses over our visible line there, or our vertical line there. We don't worry about these 2 bottom corners. Even though we drew corners, we don't have to worry about them because those show the insides of an object. And if we look at our isometric here, we don't see those lines, so I'm not worried about them. And then it's just a matter of going in and darkening up the lines that are supposed to be visible. I have a line here, which represents this guy right there, and it goes back to a cross mark, which will interact with the line right there. So I'm just going to go in and connect those dots. And then I have a 2-point perspective for my cube done. Again, these are going to be a little funky. They're not going to look quite right, and that's perfectly fine. But these are how you do 1 and 2 point perspectives. Always, always, always start off with the horizon, then add in your points or your vanishing points, and then either start off with your front view or start with your tallest height. Then from that point, you take your lines or endpoints back to the vanishing points, and then you start drawing out the views that are needed. It's not a hard process, but it does take a little bit of practice, and if you have problems with it, please let me know. But that's the basic setup for what we're doing here.